Long ago, a powerful kingdom sat across the sea from Athens and Sparta. This was Troy, a fortress protected by walls so massive they were said to be built by the gods themselves. We know its ruin thanks to Homer, the blind poet who recorded how this world-ending conflict began with wounded pride at a divine wedding. When Eris, the goddess of discord, was left off the guest list, she retaliated by tossing a golden apple inscribed with a simple phrase, "To the most beautiful." Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite immediately began fighting over the prize. Wanting to avoid the dispute, Zeus passed the responsibility to a mortal, selecting a humble Trojan shepherd named Paris to act as the ultimate judge. Pushing this divine argument into human hands set a lethal precedent. The destruction of Troy would be dictated entirely by the flaws of mortal decision-making. Each goddess offered Paris a bribe. Hera offered power, and Athena offered military skill. But Aphrodite appealed to his lust, promising him the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Taking this prize created an immediate political disaster. Helen was already married to King Menelaus of Sparta. Long before she was taken, a coalition of powerful Greek leaders had sworn a blood oath to defend her marriage. Bound by their word, those leaders answered Menelaus's call for revenge. Commanded by his brother, Agamemnon, the kings of Greece assembled a massive armada and set sail across the Aegean Sea. Back in Troy, the royal family welcomed Paris and his stolen bride. His sister Cassandra carried a divine curse of speaking true prophecies that no one would ever believe. She screamed that Helen would bring the city down, but the royal guards dismissed her as insane and locked her away. Paris allowed his desire to eclipse any sense of caution. Because of one man's lust and a binding political pledge, two empires were now locked into a catastrophic, decade-long war. 10 years later, the Greek forces were stalled. Wave after wave of infantry had thrown themselves at the city, failing completely to crack Troy's defenses using brute force. The invading army possessed exactly one major tactical advantage: Achilles. Their seemingly invulnerable champion was the single force on the battlefield terrifying enough to keep the defending Trojans from pushing them back into the sea. This diagram illustrates the burden Achilles carried. A prophecy stated his life would follow two paths. On one, he abandons the siege, living a long, peaceful life, but dying forgotten. On the other, he stays to fight, securing eternal glory, but guaranteeing he dies young. Achilles' internal conflict mirrors a harsh human dilemma, weighing the intoxicating allure of immortal fame against the safety of a quiet existence. For a time, Achilles stepped away from the fighting. A bitter dispute with Agamemnon over a slave girl caused him to stubbornly withdraw his men, leaving the rest of the Greek army to suffer devastating losses. Desperate to rally the breaking troops, Achilles' closest companion, Patroclus, borrowed his iconic armor and charged into battle. The deception failed, and Patroclus was slain by the Trojan prince, Hector. Consumed by grief and absolute wrath, Achilles actively embraced the short, violent path, re-entering the slaughter with the purpose of butchering Hector. He chased down the prince, killed him, and dragged his corpse around the city walls behind a chariot. This victory sealed his doom. Shortly after, a poisoned arrow guided into his one vulnerable heel brought the invincible warrior down for good. By giving in to a blind thirst for revenge, the Greeks lost their greatest weapon. Achilles was dead, and the stone walls of Troy still stood completely unbroken. With brute force officially useless and their champion gone, the Greeks had to rethink their entire approach. Their wisest king, Odysseus, recognized they needed to pivot to psychological warfare. This cross-section shows the tactical genius of their plan. The Greeks constructed a massive, hollow wooden horse, hiding a team of their elite warriors deep inside its belly, while the rest of the armada burned their camps and faked a total retreat. The next morning, the Trojans awoke to an empty beach and a towering wooden idol. Believing it to be a peace offering from a defeated enemy, the city immediately began celebrating. Cassandra begged her people to burn the structure, but the Trojans, desperate to declare the war over and blinded by their own vanity, ignored her. They made their final, fatal choice and dragged the offering straight through the gates. The bitter irony of the 10-year siege is that Troy's indestructible walls were never breached from the outside. They were bypassed the moment the Trojans willingly invited the enemy through the front door. It serves as a stark reminder that the greatest fortresses on earth fall to our own pride, vanity, and fatal vulnerability to deception.